that's a long one, but it's been a fun one. I actually when I was going, I started in customer service, and after my first summer there, I got promoted to our parts department, which was awesome because I got to interact with people. And Bill Steven, whose father George started the business, let me work there in the summers up until I got my master's degree. And then I was supposed to work for my national fraternity because my fraternity at Eastern Illinois had a huge problem with drug abuse, hazing, alcohol, sexual abuse, and I had to
What
clean that up and
fraternity?
throw a bunch. Sigma Chi.
Ah, the Sweethearts.
That's it. So we cleaned that up, and and basically I pulled a Van Wilder. The university paid for my grad school. Sigma Chi gave me a stipend. I had a blast. I used to speak nationally on hazing and masculinity, and that was my thesis, was redefining male masculinity in a fraternity setting in order to alleviate hazing. And then that job fell through because of, it's all the happenstance. I always got sucked back into Weber. So that job fell through. And then Bill Steven was like, come back and work. I was out of school with my master's degree. Jim Steven came into the parts store and was like, hey, I want to talk to you tomorrow about a job. It snowed. I was in my Camaro, couldn't get out of my subdivision, had to drive back to had to push my car down, get my wife's car, drive to work. And Jim created a position doing product training. And then from there, I befriended our head chef at our R&D lab, Edna, who was there 30-some years, whose husband, Eric Schlosser, was our head designer on, I mean, basically every major patent on any Weber grill since, let's say, the early 70s. Eric's on with Jim Steven. And I just spent my time going there at 10 o'clock in the morning. I would check Amazing Ribs. I would check the Virtual Weber Bullet from 7 to 9. I would go over to Edna. We'd talk about lunch. We'd go buy meat. We'd cook for the R&D guys. They paid $3 for the sides. We would cook. And I learned to cook to test, not cook for flavor, but cook to test. And I learned how we designed. I learned how we engineered. They would give me prototypes to take home and cook and give feedback. And I was just in this like learning environment that was so enriched because I was doing company tours. So I saw from the raw materials, I saw from the design, it was so freaking cool to be part of that thing. And then it just kind of like, I started just cooking with Edna, and she basically had the reputation at Weber at that time where Jim Lengren, our CFO, and Mike Kempster Sr., who was our CMO, if she told you it worked, it worked. And if she would talk so candidly to those guys. I mean, didn't give a shit. If I walked into the kitchen, I looked fat a day, she'd call me fat. Like old German lady would smoke under the hoods, didn't give a shit, but had Weber and the integrity of our product and had the voice of the guys at the above. And so I learned from her. And then eventually, like, the biggest compliment I got was we were cooking for a meal, and Jim looked at Edna, who he put her on a pedestal that you wouldn't believe. And he's like, hey, Edna, he's pretty good, huh? And Edna looked at him and he goes, Jim, he's better than I've ever been. And it was one of those moments I was like, shit, she was a legend at Weber. Wow. And so it was one of those compliments I'll never forget. She was a surrogate mom to me, grandma to my kids, just an amazing lady. But she taught me how to cook to test and how to actually look at a grill, get to the heartbeat of a grill, like our Genesis. When we redesigned that, and we had those diffusers way in the bottom. She was on vacation. I was actually one of the guys that helped figure out that we needed those, because after 10 cooks, the thing would start on fire. The grease tray would start on fire. So we figured that we needed to put those diffusers way down low to help dissipate the grease and the fats and everything else from pooling and accumulating. And then no matter what we did, 10 cooks, it started on fire. So you learn such a scientific approach to how we do things that just, and now I get to work that side of the business. It was like, hey, can you try doing this TV spot? Can you do this interview? And so I had this crazy learning environment. And then you just get to partner with people like Meathead. My first food show was with Bobby Filet and Emeril Lagasse. I still have that lid that they signed for me. Like I've had taught barbecue in 16 different countries. Like I've had a pretty good life, set a world record with Chris Lilly. I mean, I've done so much that it's just fun to talk about that, because it's not about me. It's about how we, and just like what you guys do, create an environment where people can learn and we can keep passing this torch, right? Because I only have 2 daughters, and I hope that eventually they cook and I don't have to, and I can judge the food like they judge me now. And I mean, it's been a wild ride, but I'm so fortunate. Jim Steven's a great friend of mine. So is Bill Steven. Like, I still keep in contact with them. I still go to lunch with them. I still talk to them. I still get texts on Christmas and New Year's from them. Like, it's been pretty awesome. So I got nothing ever to complain about, but it's been, a very, very, hell of a ride. And, teaching barbecue at Texas A&M and teaching it at Ohio State and actually having a class for credit there is pretty awesome feat
What
that we've been able
exactly
to
is your
accomplish.
title now?
Head grill master.
Head grill
master and spokesman.
You left out the part where
That's a cool title.
left out the part where you met me at a Yankees game and I made you world famous.
Did I meet you at it? No, I didn't meet you at a Yankees game. Did
Yeah,
I?
you did. You were doing a cooking demonstration at the new Yankee Stadium, and it was me and Kevin, what's his name, who was the spokesperson.
No, it wasn't the Yankee
Frank's?
Stadium. It was the Meadowlands, wasn't it? Where the Jets and Giants play.
Maybe I was with Kevin, the face of Frank's mustard and all that stuff. Frank's
Yeah,
Red Hot.
I think it was at the Meadowlands, if I can remember correctly, because we never really did anything at Yankee Stadium. I might have been doing something with Lobel's at the time.
Yeah, it might be.
But I think it might have been at New Meadowlands, possibly.
It was a long time ago.
But you know what? No one's a big of a legend. I mean, Clint, this is your time of year, right? This is your time to shine. You got to bring back out the Super Bowl stadium, all the loaded up in it. I mean, this is legendary Clint time right now.
Yep.
Playoff season.
I see Meathead pushed us live.
Yeah, I was just going to announce that. I went ahead and clicked. Kevin was rambling with a great story there, so I hit the live button. So we've got about 15 folks in attendance already, and just for those of you who are here, we'll start on time at 7:30, but we're just doing a little warm up here. You're in the green room with us, little BSing. Kevin just went to the bathroom.
I'm coming back.
Really, Kevin, you should be wearing like a fur cap with earmuffs. That background, you should make it look like you're out there now.
I mean, I like the hat. I got this hat in Bryan, Texas, small place when we go down to Camp Brisket down in College Station. And that's another fun adventure. I was able to, I talked to Dr. Sable, who's been teaching down there for forever. He was doing his freshman class, which is a barbecue science class for freshmen, and they go through all the different types of cooking and everything else. And I saw they had a bunch of beat up grills. I'm like, Dr. Sable, I left a message. Dr. Sable, hey, can I help you with new grills or kettle or whatever you need? And he tells the story in front of everybody every year. He's like, Kevin calls me up and I just about peed my pants. Like his first Weber was given to him 47 years ago when he got married. And he's like, you want to come down and sit on some panels at Camp Brisket? And I'm like, there's no reason like 8 years ago I should be sitting next to Aaron Franklin and Wayne Mueller and all these legends.
Yeah.
And and you get to learn from them. And it was so powerful. And it was one of those experiences where you're like, I want to get a cowboy hat. Like I want to walk. So I went to this place, Catalina's Hats down in Bryan, Texas, 3rd generation hat maker. So I go in there like an idiot. 2.5 hours later, I finally walk out. And it was like after an hour and a half, Scott Catalina was like, hey, what do you want? You want to flip the switch? I'm like, what do you mean you want to flip the switch? It's like, you want to walk like a cowboy, talk like a cowboy? I go, yes, that's what I want to do. He goes, buy the 10X hat, not the 15, because if you spend $400 on a hat, you're never going to want to wear it. I said, okay. So he puts the hat on, he molds it all up, does all that stuff. And then I don't know if you're able to see it, but I got a big old grease stain. I put this in one of the pits at Camp Brisket. So I got it blessed by the holy fats of Texas barbecue. So this is my baby custom fit hat. And I can't wear it I can't wear it in the spring because it gets too warm. So you'll find me in this all the time.
I was raised in Central Florida, and I wore a straw cowboy hat often because I was outdoors a lot, but I couldn't wear it any longer because you can't wear it on an airplane. You lean back on the airplane and a hat flips off and lands in the guy's lap.
That's the worst. I always got to take mine when I'm on the planes, just put it in my lap, and then you just hold it there, and it's kind of
it's a burden. So I switched to ball caps.
It is a burden, but you know what? Like, there's something to be said. And Homer Robertson, who's like I think Homer's now a 4-time chuck wagon champion out of Texas. Like Homer, I mean, he pulls the whole chuck wagon, does it all. He goes, Kevin, you're not from Texas? I said, no, Homer, why? He's like, because you really work that hat well. He's like, not many people could pull off a black hat like that.
A
but
Chicago cowboy.
That's in the Chicago Cowboy. I'm gonna edit that one.
We're about 2 minutes from going live, and Clint will kick us off. We are live actually, but from a formal launch. Clint will kick us off, and Clint, don't forget to tell folks about the difference between chat and Q&A.
All right. Should I mention that we're going to a 2-month format?
No, we haven't decided all that. Let's just leave that until we get it worked out and we get a schedule. All right. Well, we can continue BSing here. I plan to talk a little bit about, there is an article on our website about cold weather cooking, and there's some cool photographs. I'll do some screen share that members sent us of how they wrap their machines and windbreaks and stuff like that. Hey, Kevin, is that photo behind you? That's not this year. We haven't had that much snow yet.
That was last year, but it was such an awesome picture. Like, that's a big driveway. It takes me about an hour and a half to snowball and clean. And I love that area, but I'm like, man, that is sure a good, you got the WSMs, you got
one of everything.
Well, we like to have firepower, right? That's important.
Yep.
I got to tell you, I have one of everything also, not all Weber, but I find that it's just my wife and me. And I find that in many, many cases, it's the kettle that I go to first.
Yep.
It's just, even after all these years, it's still the most versatile tool that I have. I wish there was a way to raise and lower the charcoal bed. I really do like the slow and sear. I've said this to you before. You guys ought to buy that product and make him a rich man. He deserves it. It's a great product. It really enhances the kettle. But my kettle with the slow and sear, I can grill, I can smoke, I can sear, I can do it all. I just love that little machine.
It's a fantastic machine.
My go-to's always been my 27-inch.
Oh, you got a 12.
Well, I mean, early on when I would watch stuff, Clint early on, that was somebody that I followed, and the pictures that he would have on ribs were just absolutely beautiful, right?
All right, we're at 0-0. Take it, Clint.
Yes, welcome everybody to our first Pitmaster Club happy hour of the new year. Welcome to 2021. Hopefully it's better than the last one. Our topic tonight is cold weather smoking and grilling, and we've put together a pretty exciting panel. Myself, Meathead, everyone knows the famous Max Good, the only person in the world whose full-time job is reviewing smokers and grills. We've also got Spinnaker, who everyone should know in the pit, and a very special guest, Kevin Kolman, whose job is, I just forgot, you're the grill master for Weber Grills. Is that the official title though?
Head grill master.
The official title is head grill master, but whatever you want to call me, fire master, playing with fire, doesn't matter. We're all great cooks and great pit masters. We all learn from each other.
So at one point somebody wanted to call me head something or other, and I decided it sounded semi-pornographic, so I preferred chief. You should be chief grill master rather than.
Well, I'm working on my next position and title, so I appreciate that. Somebody recorded. So
yeah, you want to be chief, not head.
I do want to be chief. Well, head's got. I get it. Chief would be nice.
Yeah. and for those of you who don't know, everybody in the pit should know Spinnaker, but you may not know that he lives in the frozen north of Minnesota. Where are you precisely?
I'm in Minnetonka. It's about 15 miles due west of Minneapolis.
Okay.
So he is a true cold weather cook. Are you still cooking up there?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I did a New York strip tonight and some asparagus on the Weber kettle, and yeah, I go all year round. There's no reason to stop just because it gets a little cold.
You've
Now,
got a
before
kettle
we get-
too.
Before we get too deep, I just want to let people know that haven't joined us before. There's two features that you all have access to. There's a chat feature, which lets you talk amongst yourselves. And there's a Q&A button that we ask that you submit any questions via the Q&A button. So Meathead and I can kind of sift through them and feed them to the appropriate
Yeah,
person.
why don't you not worry about the Q&As? I'll keep an eye on them. I've got multiple screens here, so I'll have the Q&As open. If anybody has questions for any of the panelists, hit the Q&A and I'll read it and pass it on. And if you want to just talk amongst yourself and make fun of each other or whatever you want to do, use the chat button, but I'm not necessarily going to be watching the chat feature. So away we go.
Yeah, and I'm going to kind of leave it up to you guys tonight because I'm in Memphis and it is a very cold 34. It's 34 degrees today, which is pretty darn brutal for me. And
well, let me lay some of the basic concepts out, and then you guys can fill in. I mean, the first thing to keep in mind is whether you're cooking on charcoal, gas, pellets, whatever, you have a fuel and you have oxygen. And in cold weather, that oxygen is cold. And it takes more energy to warm that oxygen so that you can have proper combustion. So you need more fuel. So whatever else is going on underlying this conversation, you're going to need more charcoal. You're going to need more pellets. You're going to need more gas. Cold weather, that's just what it is. So make sure you got a spare tank. I mean, you should always have a spare tank. There's nothing worse than running out of gas in the middle of a cook. And you have plenty of pellets, and you have extra charcoal, an extra bag or two of charcoal. Number two, you want to make sure you preheat your oven. And I'll call it an oven because your grill is just an outdoor oven anyhow. And you want it good and hot because that ambient air temperature outside is making that metal cold. And that metal then becomes like a cold radiator or a heat absorber. And it will absorb heat from inside. So get all the metal hot, and it'll take you longer. Normally, you might take 10, 15 minutes to get your kettle up to temp. You might need 30 minutes to get it up to temp. Your gas grill, whatever, get it good and warm. The other killers are wind, rain, and snow. And wind blows across the metal and removes heat. And so as it removes heat, the interior temperature is hard to control, and you need more fuel, and things start. I mean, if you've read what Clint and Max and I have written over the years, you know that we're control freaks. You've got to have control over your food, your cooker, and everything. And it's really hard to control stuff in cold weather, particularly when there's wind, rain, snow. Brush all the snow off. I love that picture behind Kevin. That's fantastic. I mean, it's so romantic. It's so Christmassy, but you don't want to just go out there and fire up. Tilt left or right, Kevin, so they can see your gas grill. There it is. That's a Weber Summit, I think, behind you. Okay, you can come back, Kevin. I think that's a Weber Summit behind him. I mean, he can go out there and fire it up, but it's going to use up a lot of fuel to melt the snow off the hood. So you got to get rid of all that stuff. And if it's snowing and raining, you're just going to have to, you're used to setting the dial to 1 o'clock for 225. You're going to have to set it to 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. Something else to think about in cold weather, nothing beats a Kamado. Those ceramic Kamados, Now Weber has a Kamado type grill smoker, but nothing beats the ceramics. The problem with ceramics is once you get it up to temp, it's really, it's like a battleship. It's really hard to turn it. It's hard to lower the temp and raise the temp, but Kamados are fantastic in cold weather. Have you got one, Spinnaker?
Kamado?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got 4 of them.
All right. We need to do a happy hour on Kamados.
Yeah, there you go. I know, there's a lot of interest in that in the pit. Let's schedule that. What do you got?
I have 3 green eggs and a Kamado Joe Jr.
Why do you need 3 green eggs?
Small, medium, and large.
It was a great deal.
Oh, you are hardcore, and you're an addict.
Yeah, I mean, I had a large big green egg, and then I had I'm a bachelor, so for me to fire up the green egg to cook is a little bit much. So I wanted to get a small one, so I bought the junior, and then I kind of got tired of. My dad lives pretty close to me, and I kind of got tired of hauling my gear back and forth all the time, and so I ended up just getting one to keep at his house, so I have something to cook there. And then I found a really good deal on Craigslist, and so I ended up picking up my 4th one. So,
well, that's hardcore.
Yeah, but the basic point, I think, being that you want a grill that has some insulation. You don't want to be out there with your grocery store char griller that's
yeah. I mean, it's
sucking air in all the time.
I mean,
well, before we went live, we were all talking about the fact that we all love our Weber kettles.
Oh, yeah.
And I've got Weber Smoky Mountains, and I love that. But it is thin metal. Oh, no, let me rephrase it. It's thick metal, but it's still metal. It's not as thick. Well, it's medium thick metal. I mean, thick metal. Now. Thick metal is a Lang or something, 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch thick, but it's metal, and it's got a good enamel coat. But it is not. It's going to lose heat. It's going to transmit heat. So these Kamados, the ceramics at least, are really good at retaining heat.
Yeah.
Well, I think anything's good at retaining heat. I mean, our Weber Kamado, which we used to call the Summit Charcoal, but the Weber Kamado now.
Yeah, wait, don't skip over this. Do the background story here and explain to us what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, we came out with our Weber, our Summit Charcoal a while back, and we were trying to, and having cooked on the Kamado Joes, having cooked on the Big Green Egg, there was a lot of, I think, nuances that we tried and did make better. And what we found was we wanted performance above all, and we ended up getting that, which is very similar. I'm drinking out of a Yeti right now, and that's the same thing. Is air is the best insulator for us, and we're good at bending steel. And so I have pictures of my Summit Charcoal with almost 2 inches of snow on top of it, and the temperature reading is 225, and that's how well insulated it is. And for people to understand, like, I agree, the ceramics hold such great heat. I mean, that's a technology you can bring all the way back. But what we found was, if you want to control temperatures and go up and down, adjusting the dampers and using the power damper, you can go up to 600, and in 30 minutes you can go down to 225. And that's
a fair point.
I mean, it is, because you look at, pour a cup of coffee in a ceramic mug, 10 minutes later it's cold. You pour a cup of coffee in a Yeti or a double wall insulated glass, and 45 minutes later that coffee is still warm. And so that's how we looked at how we designed that grill. Is we wanted performance, we wanted flexibility, we wanted ash removal, we wanted all the stuff that makes grilling better, except for the fact that I don't want, to the point, you can't go up and down on the Kamados, which is a hamper, but they hold energy, and that's insulated the right way, and you can cook well.
To clarify, the Weber Summit Charcoal uses air gaps, trapped air,
Correct.
double layers of metal for insulation, which is a really good approach, but it also gives you more flexibility in raising and lower temperature. And you called it the Weber Summit Charcoal in the past, but now you're repackaging or repositioning it or remarketing it as a Kamado. Is that correct?
That is correct. And for a lot of people, there was a confusion. Like, is it the kettle, which we talked about, which is a summer charcoal? It is, but I think it fits more into that Kamado discussion because of how well it's insulated and how well it cooks. And so you have to look at the marketplace, and it continues to evolve and how you market things. But it's a slow cooker. It's a hot and fast grill, just like those. It retains heat. It's insulated well. It's one of my favorite grills to cook on because that thing just provides performance. It gives
Max,
you a
you
Ferrari
still have
engine.
one.
I do, and you can't have me to. I really do like it quite a bit, sincerely. And I think I understand why you guys called it the Summit Charcoal Grill. I thought it was so cool to give it the Summit title. But I do think it's a good idea to rename it as a Kamado. I think people, now that when you first came out with the Summit Charcoal Grill, people, why is it so expensive? It looks like a kettle, but it's not a kettle. So if you call it a Kamado, maybe they'll get it a little better.
No, I mean, that was part of the thing, but I think I remember back, you guys were the first to review it. And if I can remember correctly, that thing crashed your website, crashed our website.
Crashed both websites.
At the end of the day, we deliver products to the marketplace. There's a lot of buzz and talk about it. And that's part of the fun about what we do for barbecue. And that's, I think, such an important piece of what you do for barbecue is you provide people an opportunity to learn about products at a third-party level that is unbiased, and you guys are some of the best in the business to do that. And that's, wait.
Some of the best?
I would say the best. I'm trying to be nice, but I would say the best, especially Max, because even though you have your opinions, and I appreciate those, you are very consistent on the way you guys go after and look at and test product. And that's why I'm a big proponent of what you guys do. And sometimes it hurts my feelings to see what Max writes, because I'm oh God, this hurts, but I love it.
We're not here to promote AmazingRibs.com because we have a loving audience of Pitmaster Club members. Thank you, Kevin.
Let him talk, me. He was saying some really good stuff there.
Yeah.
I was trying to Max's ego.
Go out and tell other people about us, but you're preaching to the converted. Let's talk some more about cold weather cooking, some of the other things that you guys recommend. Kevin, while you've got the floor, what do you think? What are some of your tips? And you guys cover the whole range: charcoal, gas, pellets. So what are your advice? And we do have a question from Craig Schreck about pellet smokers in cold weather. I'll read the whole question later, but share with us some of your tips and thoughts on cold weather cooking.
And I think you started it out well to begin with. Those charcoal grills, pellet grills, gas grills, they eat fuel, and you are going to need more fuel than you normally would. The preheat times are going to be more, and that's just the way it is. So you want to make sure you're never going out of it. I think, and you guys have done a great job of talking about it, but this is where technology comes way more into play with what you're cooking, right? Because you're trying to create consistency and create great barbecue. So when you can have, like, our smoke fires run by Weber Connect, and you can monitor temperatures via Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. You've got great things out there like Flame Boss. You've got other great Wi-Fi controllers that you can monitor food without going outside. Now, if you don't like who you're around and surrounded by, just go outside and you can pretend like you're doing something out there. But technology has become so much more important to creating consistency in barbecue. And it's where, like, about, I think it was 4 years ago, I was doing an interview with the Daily Herald, and it was -20 outside, and I'm cooking on a Weber kettle, and I'm cold, and it's 5 a.m. and I got 20 kettles outside, and we're cooking on a couple, and it's just eating fuel. And that's where, more and more people, and this is actually really, really fun, because we are selling more charcoal grills than we've ever have before.
Really?
People have more time at home. People are spending, we can't even keep them in stock. It's absolutely crazy. And so there's been a reassurance.
There was an uptick. I noticed. Many retailers had noticed it too. Even a couple years ago, they said we're seeing more and more interest in charcoal.
How much of this is COVID related?
I think one thing I would say is when there are recessions or other things, Weber does really well. Barbecue brands do really well because people are spending more time at home and their money is now going back into cooking and other things. I mean, if you think about it, which I love about Weber, I love about the barbecue industry. We've been around 60 years, but we've been part of some of the most important conversations and memories that people make in their backyards.
Yep.
And that's an important thing to constantly give great products. And so to give people the best information on what grills they want and the fuels that they want to use. I mean, this is where it becomes so important. You could run the blue bags during the summer because you don't need a consistent, that long-term consistent heat. But if you're going to get into cold weather cooking, this is where you go to Amazing Ribs because you can find the best charcoal, you can find the best lump, you can find the things that are going to help you be more consistent in that area. And that makes your cooking that much more easier, right? And so that's where when you look at the winter cooking, it's going to eat more heat. You need more technology built into that, so you're spending less time on it. Pellets have made that much easier, but those grills still are going to eat some fuel because of that cold weather stuff. And so that's where, like, I love the technology building more and more into grilling because it's making it more accessible for people to do. And that's the great thing is we want to create great barbecue in people's backyards. Unfortunately, we're able to do that from a company standpoint, but you guys are also able to do that from your guys' area too.
Well, I've noticed 4th of July when I'm out back cooking, all the guys are hanging around the grill telling me I'm doing it all wrong. And
Somebody at your house tell you that?
What do you know, meathead? What do you know?
Isn't it time to flip that steak? But
You never see that. You never see that in the delivery room with all the other moms standing around saying you're doing it wrong.
But you don't see it at Super Bowl Sunday when I'm out back cooking on Super Bowl Sunday. They're all inside. So that's, I think, one of the benefits of cold weather cooking. You don't have the kibitzers. Kevin, I got a question here from one of our listeners. Jim Kooston's asking, how does one keep the regulator from freezing?
On a gas grill? Yeah, that's probably what he's asking. I mean, part of what happens on those gas grills with it freezing is if you don't screw that if you don't screw that thing completely in, you have the cold from the gas coming out, and you also have the cold from the air. And when those two are mixing, and you would probably know more about those two things meeting. I've never had an issue with the regulators freezing over unless there's a leak, and it's going, and that's what's causing it to
happen unless there's water, and it's really rare for there to be water in the tank, which would then get into the regulator, unless it's not on tight, and you could get air in there that is wet air. But I've never had an issue with. Most tanks are, I think, minus 44 Fahrenheit.
Yep.
So you don't have to worry about gas flowing unless you're in Siberia. As long as you're above 44 below, the gas is still going to flow because it's liquid in the tank. And if it's warmer outside than in the tank, then it's going to gasify. And as it gasifies, it goes through that regulator, and the job of the regulator is to make sure that it flows smoothly. It can freeze up on the very rare occasion that there's water in the tank, and that should not happen unless it's been filled in properly. So, Jim, if you're having problems with your regulator freezing up, you may have a bad tank or a bad fill on your tank. Or B, you may have a bad regulator, or C, it may not be connected properly. And the regulators are not terribly expensive. You might want to replace it, but be very careful that you get precisely the right. They're different for a Weber Genesis and a Weber Summit. I think I'm just guessing.
Yeah, no, they're different. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So each grill has a regulator designed specifically for that grill, and The biggest problem I hear about regulators are if there's a flame out or if you turn it off and then try to turn it back on, it doesn't always come back on right away. And usually you can overcome that by just letting the damn thing sit for 10 minutes or something. What is your
that's the ball bearing system inside the regulators, right? That's a safety thing where, I mean, basically you're taking what, I don't know, 200 whatever PSI out of the tank, which is pretty substantial. And basically that grill is working off the pressure of your breath. Like you can, if you take that regulator and you blow into the end, you can hear that ball bearing system go off, because basically what it's sensing is a hypothetical gas leak. Like it's taking, I think it's 220 PSI down to the pressure of your breath. I mean, that's basically what those grills are running off of. And so when you have a flame out and you go to restart it, what happens is that ball bearing, if the pressure is too high, the bearing just sits in that area and condenses the gas oil to 10% of the gas oil, because it's sensing that something either ate the gas line, did something. But I mean, it's one of those things. I remember I was in Florida doing a service call early on in my career, and it was a big summit, IR burner. We did everything was done, and it was like, this grill does not get over 250 degrees. What is going on? And then it clicked in my mind. Open up the side burner, and the guy left the side burner on low because he was heating barbecue sauce. But you didn't get enough smell to pull that. But it was one of those things that the side burner wasn't off. And so that's what tripped the bypass, because the bypass is basically saying there's a rush of gas to the gas grill. There's got to be a cut in something, and the ball bearing system goes through. And so that's where, the regulators are an issue. And sometimes it's the thermometers. I mean, those bimetals don't necessarily work extremely well over time. And so all of a sudden it's like, my grill doesn't heat over 350 degrees. Did you check the thermometer? Because sometimes it's just the thermometer is bad, and you just need to replace that, and it's 600 degrees.
Max will tell you about, all right, I'm not going to point any fingers at Weber, but when a company is building a grill, usually the last thing they think about is the thermometer. And they've designed everything, they've built everything, and oh shit, we need a thermometer. Where can we get the cheapest damn thermometer? And they get these cheap bimetal thermometers, and we have pictures that members send us showing a digital thermometer next to the dial thermometer, as much as 100 degrees difference. So
I got a good story for you. Next time that we go to the Weber restaurant or somewhere else, I got a funny story for you that you are going to enjoy.
Well, you can't tell it now?
No, it's between me and you. We'll take over a beer or a glass of wine. You are going to enjoy this one.
Okay. All right. But I think that Max has preached this nonstop, and we all preach it. My wife, who just retired from the FDA, once told me, you guys have sold more thermometers than the Food and Drug Administration. Now, we don't actually sell them. We test them and recommend them. We got a guy like Max who tests thermometers. He's an electrical engineer. We don't sell them. We just tell you where to buy them. But if you're not using good digital thermometers, you're really hampering your style. We got another question from a reader here that I'd like to point at Spinnaker. When it comes to charcoal and cold weather smoking, does the group prefer lump or briquette? Since lump burns hotter and faster, and briquettes burn lower and slower, which is the best in the cold? What are your thoughts? And then, Kevin, I need you to chime in on this supposition that briquettes, that lump burns hotter, faster, and briquettes burn lower and slower.
Yeah, I was going to debate that one.
Yeah. So, but what is forgetting that supposition? What's your experience, Spinnaker, and lump and briquette, and especially in Kamados, and especially in eggs, which have an ash issue?
Yeah, I mean, I always use lump in my Kamados. I mean, the ash issue is a major problem. I mean, one of the big faults of the green egg or Kamado Joe or whatever is that fire grate at the bottom. That's that cast iron grate. I always replace that with a basket of some sort so I get better airflow. And
With a what?
I use a basket, like a kick ash basket or something like that. So
Is it that's a commercial product called Kick Ash Basket?
correct. Yeah. It's basically a wire basket that replaces that cast iron grate that's at the bottom. And it allows for a lot more airflow so that, I mean, I can do lump cooks all weekend long, and I never have flame outs, anything like that. So, but I always use a high quality lump for that reason, because the main thing is airflow, and you have to maintain that. And the Kamados draw so little air once you get them heat soaked that there's not that huge rush of air. So they are literally, that air is just trickling in through that bottom and top damper. So it's, your airflow is so low that you need to make sure that you have a clean path of air. So
let me butt in very briefly, and the point that underscores all this is that lump, which is pure wood that's been carbonized, hopefully completely, but not always, makes less ash than briquettes, which are made from sawdust that have binders and other compounds in them that make more ash.
Right. Yeah. And I don't have Kingsford formula, but I know that some of those binders are, they use really low grade, like cornstarch to help bind and stuff like that. And so that stuff, that ash has to go somewhere, and so it sits. And so that's why lump is a great choice. And the only time I really use briquettes is when I'm using, I use briquettes every time in my kettle, but I prefer lump just because I'm primarily running Kamados. So that's why I prefer lump. But I was in northern Minnesota, about 20 miles from the Canadian border last weekend, and I was ripping my kettle and smoking pork belly and using briquettes. So as far as, which one burns hotter and longer, I don't know. I think hotter and longer depends more on the smoker you're using. So, if you're using a big heat sink, like a ceramic cooker or the Weber Kamado, like you're going to have a more efficient cook. So I think running lump in those is a better idea, but I do it more for airflow than I do for, which one burns hotter and longer.
If you had a Weber Kamado, though, you wouldn't have that ash problem, Spinnaker, because they have their one-touch ash removal system.
They do. They have a better.
Max, you looking for a job? We got something for you.
You can send him a check when we're off the air. Just joking.
Though.
No, but let me also interject. There's some long-standing mythology here that's hard to get rid of. Clint, Kingsford products very well. And Kevin, Weber has also got a briquette that has very little binder in it. That's pretty close to pure. I've cooked with it, and it produces no more ash than lump. What's with Kingsford, Clint?
Well, Kingsford Professional, if you see it in the stores, is an all-natural briquette. So basically it's lump in briquette form. So instead of opening up a bag, and this is my biggest qualm with lump, you'll open up the bag and you'll have a bunch of little tiny pieces the size of a pea, and then you'll get one big chunk the size of your baby's head. But with the all-natural briquette, you're getting consistency across the board, so you know what you're getting every single time.
Yeah, I've written about this, and I get accused of being a Kingsford shill, but I'm a control freak. We've said that already. I want control, and the beauty of briquettes is every little pillow is exactly the same size. And when I use a Weber chimney, and when I fill the Weber chimney, it holds how many briquettes, Kevin?
Well, the Weber briquettes are about 75 to 80. If you're at Kingsford, it's 110.
I count 80 briquettes. I count 80 briquettes in it, and that's 80 individual units of heat. And if I fill it halfway, it's 40 briquettes. And so we're talking about energy. And I now have an accelerator pedal. I have control over energy. And when I get a lump this big or a lump the size of my thumb, they're irregular. And the biggest concern I have with lump is if you cook with lump, it often sparks and sputters and crackles and snaps. And that's because it doesn't always carbonize all the way through. And in the center of the lump, often there's still uncarbonized wood, cellulose. And that produces a lot of smoke. And I prefer that my charcoal produces heat and only heat. I don't want smoke from charcoal. I want smoke from wood. Charcoal is for heat, wood is for flavor. And so I want my charcoal to burn till it's coated with white and producing the maximum amount of heat it can and the minimum amount of smoke. And then I'm going to put wood on top of that, either chips or chunks. I typically prefer chunks or even small logs. And that will give me the smoke that I desire. And the thing that's cool is when I got started, Kingsford Blue Bag, there's a lot of binders and additives in, not a lot, but there's binders and additives in there that do produce extra ash, which is a problem on the Big Green Egg. I've got an egg, but not so much a problem on the kettle or something else. But nowadays, I think Weber, Royal Oak, and Kingsford all produce briquettes that are pretty much pure wood. I don't know how you guys are binding it. Do you have any insight? How do you bind? I presume you make the briquettes out of sawdust. You carbonize it or char it, turn it to char, and now you've got to get it into that pillow shape. How do you get it to hold the pillow shape without binders?
A minimal amount of cornstarch, but that's where, to your point, like, and I think sometimes you guys, we forget about it, is when you're talking to people about, it's beginners, intermediates, and advanced. And Wicked does a really good charcoal. Royal Oak does a great charcoal. We do a good charcoal. But for people that are getting into cooking, like, having a great fuel source that's consistent makes their life easier. That's probably why pellets are so gone after, because it's just consistent, right? And so, like, the fuel source that you go to is important. I'm to you, like, I go down to A1 Country Firewood down on the south side.
I know that place.
My wood. I want 9 to 12% humidity in the wood logs that I buy, because those will give up. I mean, it has, and you're the one that dictates all this stuff because it's down to a science. So you have to have, I want my charcoal as my fuel source. That's not where my flavor's coming from. I want the oak, I want white oak, or I want post oak to be able to flavor that beef that I'm doing, or cherry or apple, whatever it is. But those briquettes need to be so consistent. And I'm not going to say anything about anybody else, but when it gets cold weather, when things start going the wrong direction, weather, snow, everything else, you need a consistent briquette that is going to hold temperature over time. And that's where Royal Oak, ourselves, and others can give you that fuel. Now, in the summer times, it really doesn't matter. You can dump a bunch of stuff in there. I get it. But that's where, when you go to lump charcoal, like, it's so inconsistent because it's not the same thing. And that's where, and I've seen it, and it's a hack for people out there that want to learn. Like, lump charcoal, you put that in a WSM, you put that in and this is how the genius, like, this is how I learned with Weber. I will tell you, because me, Dad, you're right.
WSM is Weber Smoky Mountain.
Yes. The ash removal. We designed that charcoal grate to have gravity pull the ash down. We could have put more things on there, but we leave that gap so there's airflow and the ash can go itself down. Now, if you want to use lump inside of there, because lump is going to fall through, you take 2 charcoal grates, put them on top of each other perpendicular, and you can use lump all day long. It's inconsistent. You're going to be adding, you're going to have to manage a fire. And if you like that, trust me, I had a laying in my backyard for 6 months. And as much as I like walking 14 steps down to add fuel to it, and walking 14 steps up, I feel like I was climbing the Sears Tower, and it's fun because you got the stack. Like, I just want consistency. So give me my wood, give me my flavor up until that 150, 60 temperature and go. But that's the thing about lump is all these techniques and tips that help you adjust to do that. But in the cold weather, I want a consistent, pillowy, large briquette that's going to hold temperature over time, be consistent, that I don't have to worry about, and then we can move. I mean, and that's where you go to your website, there's a ton of information on briquettes and lump that people need to, pay a lot of attention to, but that's where it becomes more important, because give me a good pit, give me a good fuel, give me good meat, give me good methodology, and we've got some pretty good barbecue. It's pretty simple sometimes, but people screw it up or make it really good.
Well, if you're chasing hotter, because that's one of the questions here, is burn hotter, and the way to make it hotter is add more fuel. I mean,
or add more oxygen.
10 briquettes gives you more heat, and I really think I really want to start trying to get people to think in terms of energy, not heat. And the example that I always use, and you may have heard me use it before, is go into your kitchen, turn your oven to 200 degrees. When it's preheated, open the door and stick your arm in. You can hold your arm in there for minutes. 200 degrees. Doesn't burn your arm. Doesn't even singe the hair. Now put your hand on the side of that oven. When you get back from the hospital, you know that everything that is 200 degrees doesn't have the same amount of energy. That air conducts and retains and conducts less energy than the hot metal. That metal's 200 degrees. The air's 200 degrees, but it's energy that we're talking about. And when we talk about grilling or smoking, you've read me and heard me talk about two-zone cooking. It's absolutely crucial that you have the ability to set up in two zones. Because if you have charcoal all pushed to one side or gas burners on one side all the way up high, the other side is off. On the off side, you have warm convection airflow. But the minute you move directly over flame, you have infrared radiation, and that's a more concentrated form of energy. And then you have the metal grates, which is even a higher, more concentrated form of energy. So we need to think about energy more than we do heat. And Kevin, you were talking about logs. This is my new toy. You recognize this?
A micrometer?
Yeah, this is a, see, I don't know if you guys can see it. It's got two metal you stick this into a log and it measures the moisture level of a log.
You got it.
Yeah. So, I mean,
it was one of those things I learned down at Camp Brisket. 2 years ago, they were talking about that 9 to 12% humidity inside the logs, and that's what they look for. And it's something that we measure. But that's the thing about it is you find those places. A1 is one of those places we get really good wood from. Meathead, you're familiar with them. I'm not endorsing them by any means, but they have always provided us really strong wood. And it was one of those things when I went down to Camp Brisket. And I was like, I don't get that same smell and aroma from a WSM when I put wood in it with the chunks. And the thing I found was awesome is I went down and they actually cut us 12-inch logs that go in our WSM. So I put the logs in the center, 3 of those. I banked the charcoal around it. I light my chimney. I let it go for 20 to 30 minutes. And that thing is clear as day, smoke coming out of it, maybe a little blue, but you get an aroma and a flavor. And I will never cook food Summit, Kamado, WSM without using logs because they give such a better aroma and flavor. But that's some of all that stuff is based off what you've taught me and what we've learned down there.
Well, anybody wants to read more about this, go to the website and look up combustion. And there's an article about this. But small logs, and you can get a log that's 3, 4, 5 inches size, or you can buy logs and cut them down, chop them down. But they produce a flavor, even chunks, better than chips. Smoldering is fine, but burning is better. When you see burning, when you see yellow flame, it's combusting impurities, and you're going to get a blue smoke, a better smoke.
Spinnaker,
more questions. How about you guys? You got any questions for Spinnaker up in the frozen north.
Yeah,
Kevin.
I was wondering, I mean, are there other things other than cooking on your Kamado that people can do to increase the efficiency?
Yeah.
Cooking outside, positioning against, I'm sorry, putting the cooker up against a wall with a windbreak or anything like that?
Yeah. So I, particularly if I'm using a like a WSM or a pit barrel cooker or something like that. I mean, when it gets, I mean, I cook for a Lions Club event on one of the local lakes here, and it's in the middle of January. It's typically 15 below when I start cooking in the morning at 4:30 a.m. There's a nice 20-mile-an-hour wind coming off the lake, so our wind chills are probably in the area of 25 below to 30 below.
Oh my God.
That heat gets sucked away from those cookers really, really fast. And so one thing I do is I have a couple of felt welding blankets that I will drape over the cookers, or I'll wrap them around the cookers. I've got 3 pit barrel cookers, and so what I do usually is I'll put them together, in as tight as I can get them, and then I'll put the blankets around them, and they'll stay very consistent.
Oh, okay.
Or I will, so I don't like using the fiberglass ones just because obviously I don't want fiberglass stuff around my food. So I found that using a felt blanket is the best way to go. And it really, really does help. And you can pick those up at any hardware store or something like that. So
I've heard of people using those blankets that movers use.
yeah, those are a good option too. I just, I don't know how heat safe those are, and so that's why I went with the welding blanket.
Can you see my screen? I'm sharing the screen.
Yes, those look like they're fiberglass blankets, and so those are an option too. And then I see that those foil ones are good options too. But I like the felt blankets just because they're more malleable and you can put them around various types of cookers and stuff like that.
This looks like a regular old insulation here.
Yeah, I just don't know how.
That is a little scary, that one.
That one worries me.
Yeah, so I like those felt blankets because I figure if they can handle welding slag and stuff, they're probably just fine sitting around my smoker. So I like to put those up, and it really, really makes a difference. And then as far as like a windbreak, I'll try to, if I can, I'll try to set stuff up out of the wind as much as possible, because that wind chill really sucks the heat away. Kind of like what you were talking about earlier. And so wind is very good. And then, turning, you don't want to turn your dampers away from the wind per se, because you still want to have draw and stuff like that. But, if you're really struggling to get your temps up, maybe turning your smoker away from the wind can help and stuff. But again, we kind of go back to the thing where sometimes you just need more fuel to make more heat.
Hey, can you see that picture?
Yeah.
Now that's hardcore.
WSM in action.
Yeah. I love it though. That's got to be Minnesota or someplace.
Yeah, Spinnaker, after a big snowstorm, what are you shoveling out first? Your wife's car or your smoker?
Come on, everybody knows that answer.
Yeah, well, I don't have a wife, so I guess I'd have to say
that's right.
It would be it would be the smoker regardless.
Well, one of our members wrote in when we were writing this article on how do you protect. He wrote he likes to wrap it in his ex-wife's wedding dress.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just scroll through. There is an article on our website called Cold Weather Cooking that talks about some of these things. This is a special blanket designed by the guys over at Barbecue Guru. I don't know if they're still selling it, but you can see it's custom designed for the Weber Smoky Mountain.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah. And then this guy built himself like a little phone booth for his WSM, complete with horseshoe for good luck.
Damn. Looks like an outhouse.
And it's on wheels. And then this guy just, got some folding, stiff insulation board and built himself a little container. Here's another one similar. The guy just took some stiff insulation boards and duct taped it together.
Yeah. My only comment on that style is wind. Those things are traditionally really light. And
Yeah.
a wind will pick that stuff up, and you'll find it in your neighbor's lawn. So that's why I like the blankets, because you can you can wrap them around stuff. It doubles when I'm welding too. So,
Well,
so I just like the blankets better. But yeah.
something kind of interesting. Speaking with some retailers recently, and a comment was made. Well, winter is smoking weather. And I think many people have felt that way, almost illustrated by the pages you were sharing, Meathead. Those are all smokers. You don't see people grilling up steaks. But I must say, obviously, if you have a smoker and you have the skill, or where you don't have to babysit it, then it really makes sense in the winter. And of course, with pellet smokers, and especially pellet smokers that have Wi-Fi monitoring, and then the next step up is not only can you monitor it, but you can control the temperature. You're inside, and the pellet smoker is doing everything for you. You just have to make sure it's clean.
Well, that's the beauty of the thermostat controllers.
Exactly.
We always talk about, if you're looking, you ain't cooking. Okay, so I got a Weber Smoky Mountain or a kettle or a gas grill or whatever, and it's been chugging along for a couple of hours, and I want to look. I can't help it. I got to see what it looks like. And you lift the lid, and what happens is all the warm air comes out. Well, when you close the lid, it really doesn't take long for it to go back up to temp. And we've demonstrated that. Doc Blonder did a series of tests, and we got charts, and it doesn't take long for it to come back up. So this whole idea that you lose 15 minutes for every time you peak is wrong.
It's 5 to 7 minutes. I got the data myself, but that's on the high temperatures. The low and slows, we're
going to arm wrestle over this one. What happens is the hot air cooks the outside of the meat. The outside of the meat builds up energy and transmit it to the center. So you open the lid, all the hot air comes out, but the outside of the meat remains hot. It doesn't instantly cool off. So when you close the lid, the hot air builds back up in there, and you have barely lost any energy from the outside of the meat. But at the center of the meat, it doesn't feel a thing. It doesn't know you've opened the lid. I'll show you my charts. You show me your charts. But the point being is
that might be the conversation we have over a beer.
Okay, I'm doing. Well, last time we had a conversation was at the Weber Grill restaurant. So we're long due.
It was, and then you showed me your Heston, and I was just like, okay, I'm in envy right now.
We're overdue. But the point being is, don't sweat it. You can lift the lid. Now, on a Weber kettle, for example, if you lift the lid and hold it vertically, now you're dumping all the air out of the dome. If you're going to lift the lid on a Weber kettle or a Smoky Mountain, lift it straight up. And the air bubble, the hot air, will remain under the lid there while you poke it for temperature, and you put it down and it'll recover faster. But this was all started by the question about pellets. And the thing about pellets is it's got a thermostat. Mm-hmm. So you can lift the lid, close the lid, and it's going to say, oh, it's cooler in here. More pellets. So it recovers very quickly. Pellet cookers recover quicker. Charcoal and gas don't know that you lifted the lid. They don't know that the air is cooled off. So they just keep on chugging along. And that's one of the beauties of pellets. I
would say it's one of the beauties of pellets because they have the controllers built in. When you have a Wi-Fi Guru, when you have the Flame Boss, they see it, they can recycle because it's built in. The same kind of reaction is with the fans that pump the pellets, right? So it's all the same. But I will say this, I have to I got to give a shout out to our CEO because he's watching. He's like, tell me that I said hello. We're long due for a conversation. So
I sat next to this gentleman before, and we had a good old
Chris
time.
Scherzinger, that's the guy. You sat
Yes.
next to him, yes.
So here's a question for you, and as long as he's listening, for him, when are you going to come out with a gas grill that has a thermostat? Now, about 5 years ago, my GE oven thermostat crapped out on me. And I went online and found a replacement part for like $30. And I opened up the oven, I installed it quickly. Now I know you've got 4 burners, it's a little more complex, but why can't I have a gas grill that has a thermostat controller? Why can't I start my Weber Summit and say 225, go there and stay there?
Well, you might be excited about what we're going to be coming out with this year. I don't want to let any cats out of the bags, but there might be some technology coming out.
I've been begging for this for years. Max has been begging for this for years.
Kevin and I and Mikkel have all talked about it.
What, Max? Do you know something that I don't know?
I know something, but I don't know if have you been holding out on me, Kevin? Because we actually
I'm not holding on to you, but I think what you guys are going to enjoy, and this is a great thing about Weber, and I work for Weber, so I get it. I've been there for almost 20 years, and I love what it does for families. We've been a part of the most important conversations and memories in the backyards and everything else.
Oh, stop the bullshit and tell me where the thermostat is.
We've got. Chris, although he says hello, we've got some great things coming, and I think you guys are going to enjoy them.
Well, I got to tell you, one of the reasons people praise pellet smokers and think they have caught on is because they've made outdoor cooking as easy as indoor cooking. That you have a thermostat, you set the temperature, you set it and forget it and walk away. If you guys could replicate that experience with a gas grill, I need to buy Weber stock because that's going to change the industry. And I know a couple of companies have fiddled with it, but nobody's nailed it yet. And it's complicated. I know you got 4 burners and how do you control, and you got 2 zones you want to set up, but there's got to be a solution. It's beyond my pay grade to offer. The role of the journalist is to complain. And so I want to see because charcoal grills have thermostat controllers now and they work well. Pellet smokers,
which is actually easier on a gas grill because it's consistent, right? The BTUs and everything else is consistent. Yeah. So you might see it coming soon. You might see it coming soon. Well, you never know.
Since we're out here begging for it, make sure we hear about it early.
Do you not always hear about it first?
Yes, you're very generous, very kind to let us see things early, even if we don't always love them.
But we appreciate the integrity behind
we love almost everything.
That's Max's job.
We love almost everything you do. Anything more we need to talk about in this cold weather cooking, or shall we just open it up to general BS and questions? And you want to ask questions about Max's sex life, or no, I'm kidding.
We kind of touched on it earlier, but when I lived up in the cold Northeast, I'd often cook larger cuts during the winter. So I wasn't out there constantly opening and closing the lid, flipping steaks, whatnot. So I could put a pork butt on or a brisket or whatever and stick my remote temperature probe in there and relax inside where it was nice and warm. That's my only tip, but I live in Memphis, so.
Yeah, one thing I would say is, I think cold weather cooking requires a little more patience. I think you need, one thing is, especially, again, I'll go back to Kamados, or any smoker, like you have to remember that you're bringing whatever you're cooking on, you're bringing that up from that really cold ambient temperature. So give yourself time to get stuff heated up, and it takes time, and it's one of those things that you just have to wait for. And like I understand the move to make things easier and make things faster, but one thing that barbecue always has been is low and slow, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Patience.
And it takes patience. And so sometimes you just gotta wait a little bit longer, where it would take a half hour to heat soak whatever cooker you're using. Sometimes it takes 45 minutes. Sometimes it'll, I don't have it usually take any longer than that. But so I mean, that would be the only thing I would recommend. Just you're doing something that's probably going to be cooking for 8-10 hours or even longer. So waiting an extra half hour to make sure that things are heated up correctly is a really good thing to do. Just take your time, otherwise your temps are going to be up and down, then you're going to get more frustrated. So I don't find cold weather cooking to be any more difficult than when it's hot out. It just takes more time. Now, when I'm cooking next to a lake and there's a 20-mile-an-hour wind and it's 15 below wind chill, yeah, it's a little bit more difficult. But like I said, it's about patience.
I got a couple of items left in my notes that I didn't touch on. Number one, don't cook in the garage.
Yes.
I mean, it's really tempting. We know wind is an issue, and in the garage, you can duck the wind. But there is stuff in the smoke and in the combustion byproducts that can kill you. Carbon monoxide among them. And if you're in the garage cooking, it's dangerous. Now, I know some folks who cook right at the edge of the garage, or they get it up to heat and then they push it out. Yeah, you're doing something risky. All your grills and smokers should be outdoors where air flows. The other thing is on the Weber Smoky Mountain. Now, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong here, but in warm weather, there's a technique for controlling temperature in them called the minion method or the snake method, where the basic concept is you dump a bunch of charcoal in there, and then you dump a bunch of lit charcoal on top, and it works like a fuse, and it burns its way around or through gently. And it's a great technique, especially in warm weather, because it produces pretty consistent heat over a long period of time. It doesn't always produce the best quality smoke, but it doesn't hurt. In cold weather, you just can't get away. You can't do on a Weber Smoky Mountain. I don't think minion or snake method is a good concept. Just get all your charcoal lit.
No, I would agree. I think the Jim Minion method, and he was, I think, a founder of starting it that way. Like we have a system. My guys run the same pits because I want consistency, regardless if I'm here. We're going down to cook with Jimmy Johnson and his team for the 24-hour race in Daytona at the end of January, and we're going to cook 24 hours straight. I like the bottom dampers 1/4 of an inch open. I like logs in the center of the WSM, charcoal banked, hot chimney, dump it in, 40 briquettes, because those are Weber briquettes. I let it go for 20 minutes. It's clean air. We put food on and we go. Like, that's the way we set it out. We adjust the intake from the top of the WSM because that's the only variable I want to change. The bottom stay the same.
Let me just make sure I hear you correctly. You control temperature with the top vent, not the bottom vent.
Never, because you have a variable. Every single one of those dampers is a variable, plus the water pan, plus the top vent. So you have 5 variables that you're running on that to adjust those small, big, like have those stationary, have the same amount of water, adjust, keep the unit apart, let all the binders and everything blow off, put it together, adjust halfway on the damper on the lid, and then let it burn. And if it's too cold, you can open it. If it's too hot, you can close it. But I want a clean smoke, and that's about a 30-minute process right there. But once it locks itself in, it's a pretty simple process to continue to cook whatever you want to. But if you're going to try to adjust the bottom dampers and this and that and the water and the heat sink inside, you're chasing your tail. You're absolutely chasing your tail, and it's never gonna happen for you. So to your point, like, I love consistency, and I've loved the way that we just set it up and let it go. Like, it's pretty simple, but you want to start adjusting the damper at, well, this damper over here is not open enough, and it's like, set them all the same and control the intake. Like, that's it. Simple.
Maybe you should
and let it
talk to
burn.
somebody at Weber about putting one on the bottom.
I would say that there's a lot of discussion, Clint, about a lot of things, right? Simplicity kills. If it was up to me, I would love a gravity fed smoker that I wouldn't even have to adjust anything. Just let it bring it all in. Call it a day. But I think there's a primal thing. There's a primal, I think, interaction with a grill that we love, and that's part of what people want to do. And I mean, you know more than anybody else. I mean, I followed you 8 years ago, and I saw the ribs you cooked at Memphis and made, and you got the acid wash kettle, and those things are looking beautiful, and your gloves and everything else. Like, everybody cooks great barbecue. You just got to follow the right people and follow the right process and get it down, right? And that's the fun part about what we do as a community is you guys get to do it more than anybody else because you get to add all the scientific stuff behind it. But that's the key to everything is learning, right? And having you guys and what you do accessible to people, because that's the important part. Like I told you early on, like, I can't wait. You're the king of Super Bowl weekend. You're the king of playoff football because you got the whole stadium full of hot dogs and full of
Oh God, that's just,
stuff. I mean,
you've seen that page. That's the coolest thing ever. If you guys don't know what he's talking about, go to our homepage and look for Clint's stadium construction. It's spectacular.
Yeah, I've got a contractor friend that does work around my house, and he constructed that based off of the actual stadium that the Super Bowl was held at 3 years ago or 4 years ago, whenever that was created. Takes up a hell of a lot of space though. When it's
You still have it?
not super. I actually ended up throwing it away when I sold my competition barbecue trailer because that's where I stored it, on top of the dust covered competition barbecue trailer.
So you're out of the competition world. Is that
Yeah, I mean, it's when I had a regular desk job in New York, working in the PR world, that was my golf on the weekends. I got to go out to the competitions, see the friends that I had made along the trail, and just hang out and cook barbecue and have fun. But now that I get to do it every single day with Meathead and Max and Spinnaker and Kevin, it's I don't need to do that on the weekends. I have fun every day of the week.
Yo.
So what do we got left? I don't see any live questions in the questions. I've not been watching the chat, but anybody got any more questions or comments? Or I mean, we don't have to stick to cold weather cooking either. You can ask about Max's sex life or.
I have a comment. It's kind of related to what Clint said, and that's simply that one of the things that I really use a lot this time of year and even other times of year is I have a patio umbrella on wheels, and it wasn't something I had to hunt for. I just got the base like at Home Depot or someplace like that, and you just stick full-size patio umbrella in it, and I can move it wherever I want because I have to sometimes cook every night when I'm testing something. And I can't let the weather this time of year or when it's raining in the summer, deter me. And I don't have a cooking area with an overhang. I do, but where I usually test the grills on my deck, and Meathead, you've been here, so you know what I'm talking about. That umbrella is very helpful, and it's not real expensive, and it's a big umbrella. It does what it's supposed to do, snow or rain.
Yeah, it makes sense.
All right. So I'm putting out a call for further thoughts, comments from our panel. Oh, there it is. There's the
There it is, baby.
there's the stadium. I don't know if you guys can see it, but Clint has just posted a picture of the stadium, hot dogs and guacamole. God, he made the whole playing field guacamole.
It's fantastic.
Go big or go home is what I say.
The ribs are the cheap seats, and
Yeah,
fantastic.
I don't mess around.
No, you don't. You don't. That's one of the reasons we love you. Questions from somebody out there, whatever's on your mind. It doesn't have to be cold weather cooking. It could be about anything. Hit us with your questions. Otherwise, we can wrap up.
I actually saw something in the chat that I didn't know from Pat Lawler. He mentioned that chunks are really hard to find in stores these days. Has anyone else seen that?
You mean chunks of wood or lump charcoal?
I think he means chunks of.
Really?
Of
I did not know that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much random stuff that has been in short supply since COVID with factories.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Now, I've written about, if you go to the site and hit the search box and hit combustion, there's an article in which we talk about combustion. And since I wrote that article, I've talked to a couple of other scientists and pitmasters, among them Bill Carew, who was one of our guests here when we did the session on cooking with logs. And Bill is a scientist by trade who built this amazing Carubicue cooker. And he knows a tremendous amount about combustion and compounds that come from wood and in smoke. And I've interviewed him at length. I spent maybe 4 or 5 hours talking to him, and I have a lot of notes on it, but it's really interesting stuff. And the core concepts are the best smoke comes from wood that is burning vigorously with flame. That flame is consuming a lot of the byproducts, contaminants, things you don't want in your smoke. That smoldering wood, which you get when you wrap chips or pellets or chunks in foil, is good smoke. It's a white smoke. Burning wood gives you a blue smoke. Smoldering wood gives you a white smoke. And it's a good smoke. It's a good flavor, but it's not as good as blue smoke. There's this hierarchy. The best flavored smoke is blue smoke. And they call it blue smoke because it's practically invisible. And then white smoke, which you're all familiar with, nice billowing white smoke. And then yellow and brown and black. And then where does the smoke come from? You don't want smoke from grease that's built up on your grill grates. You want smoke, and you don't want smoke from your charcoal. You want smoke from wood. And he pointed out something I hadn't thought of. He says, if you've ever watched a fireplace, you throw a log on the fireplace, and after a while, as it heats up, the ends of the log start to spew yellow smoke. And I'm hoping many of you know that have seen this, but it's the compounds that are vaporizing in the wood coming out of the ends, cracks and checks in the wood, and it's yellow, and that's impure, and it's a bad flavor. So long story short is that I've been playing with this at home. I've been buying from the same wood supplier Kevin buys from, because we're both in the Chicago area. Wood splits that are maybe 3-4 inches diameter. They're triangular shape, and cutting them down to 6 or 8 inches.
Okay.
And these are just like large chunks. And when you throw them on charcoal or even gas, and you get them lit, they ignite, they burn, not smolder, you get a really good clean smoke. And I've been playing with them on my Weber kettle, Kevin. I've been grilling without charcoal, with just, building a little stack of these small wood splits on my Weber kettle, because some of my favorite restaurants are all cooking over pure wood.
Yeah.
And what happens is these wood sticks burn down into embers, and essentially they become charcoal.
Yep.
And
But
those
how long do you have to soak them?
you don't soak them.
He's baiting you.
He's baiting me. Of course he is. You don't soak them. When you soak wood, when you get wood wet, the first thing that happens is, as the wood heats up, the water boils off, and it boils off at 212. So all that smoke that you're seeing of wet wood is not smoke. It's water. It doesn't start to smoke until it gets up to 500 plus. That's when combustion occurs and smoke occurs. So soaking wood chips, soaking chunks, that big billow of smoke that you see, just hold a mirror over it. You'll see it fogs up. It's mostly water, because water boils at 212. So you've got to boil off the water before it can actually combust. But it's really cool stuff, really interesting. So you want your wood, you want it to burn, and I think you want chunks or small logs whenever you can get access to them.
Yeah, I do that too. I mean, I cut all my own wood and everything, and I always take all those extra little splits that are coming off from chopping all the wood and stuff. I save all that stuff and I put that in a bin, and I use that for grilling all the time, especially on I've got a little Lodge hibachi grill that I use all the time, and that's I'll throw some splits in there and just let that burn down, and that's awesome. I love grilling like that.
Kevin, Jim Kooston is asking, should I wait till summer to buy a new grill?
I would say, if it was me, might be a good idea.
Okay. It depends on what you're looking for. Charcoal, gas, whatever.
But we have a large portfolio, but yes.
And with all due respect, Kevin here, there are so many products out there that are really interesting. Weber is, I joke when I talk to people and they ask me what to buy. I say, you buy a Weber, you can put it in your will, because it's going to outlive you.
Yep.
And I've had this experience. I had an old Weber Genesis, one of the ones with the burners going in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Well,
And
no, not
like
the wrong
50
direction. They were running right to right. It's fine.
All right. I had one for like 15 years, and I burned through a part, and I needed a new part, and I picked up the phone, and they had the part 15 years later on a discontinued grill. You can never go wrong with a Weber. There's other products out there that are the keenest, coolest, with the neat new features that we like. Max has given high grades to it. You can never go wrong with a Weber. All right. There was another question here that seemed to disappear.
Yeah, they were asking me. It was someone.
Yes, it was for you about lump. He wanted to know what kind of lump.
Yeah, I mean, as far as charcoal, I mean, other than if I'm using my kettle, I use lump exclusively. I always use Fogo. I think it's the best lump I've found on the market. I mean, I have never had it. Very, very minimal sparking, like kind of what you were talking before. I love Fogo because it has a wide variety of pieces in it. It doesn't have, the dust and all that stuff nearly as much as like a Cowboy or a Royal Oak. I've had nothing. I shouldn't say nothing but problems, but I've had a lot of problems with Cowboy and Royal Oak, and I've never had any issues with Fogo. I've never had flame outs or anything like that. So that stuff runs really, really well in my Kamados. It is pricey though. I mean, that's the only caveat, but I mean, I'm kind of the school that you're paying for quality, and I would rather have the peace of mind and be able to set my stuff up and go to bed and not have to worry about it. Where, you know, some of those other lower end brands, you know, there's always that thing on your shoulder when you're trying to get to sleep that you might have a flame out or something. But
Wake up in the middle of the night, huh?
yeah, I mean, it's something like that. When you've set stuff up and it's 15 below and you're dead asleep and you're trying to go outside when it's 3 a.m. and you're messing with your fire and stuff, it's just, for me, it's not worth it. But I really like Fogo. They have, I think, 3 or 4 different types of lump that they offer too, and yeah, I mean, they just have really good products. That's what I always use.
Yeah, Fogo is good. Fogo is good stuff. I mean, when you look at Joey Machado, he was the guy that basically built the whole runway for Fogo. I mean, that charcoal is really good. And I don't mean to interrupt, but I think Meathead, you might have a little bit of wine left in your glass. Max and everybody else, I think, like, just to be right, I think we need to raise a glass and we need to show appreciation and the RIP to Mike Mills, who was an absolute barbecue legend,
Oh God.
who paved the way for so many people. And I, you know, like, the thing I love about Amy Mills is Mike passes to Amy. I have 2 daughters. I don't have a son, and to have him pass the torch to Amy, and my daughters look up to Amy and so many other people. Meathead, you too. I think just pay a little bit of homage to who has passed and who has laid the foundation for all of us. I mean, it's a good thing, but you know, to spend a second or two to Mike, 17th Street family, and Amy, and all that has been done, in especially Meathead, you know, in the state of Illinois.
Yeah.
For that family, it's a lot, and to raise a glass and say thank you is.
For those
is
of you
good.
in the audience who don't know Mike Mills, Mike was called the Legend. It was his nickname. He's in the Barbecue Hall of Fame. He comes from Southern Illinois, and has had a bar on a side street that he turned into a restaurant, focusing on barbecue, 17th Street Barbecue. And Clint is holding up a copy of the book that he and his daughter Amy wrote together maybe 15 years ago. It's a classic called Peace, Love, and Barbecue. It's not a cookbook necessarily. There are recipes. There's just a lot of really great interviews with people of importance. And Mike cooked good barbecue down at his restaurant, and Mike competed on the barbecue circuit and won the Memphis in May multiple times, and Jack Daniels multiple times with he was involved in starting the Big Apple Cookout, which is a giant block party in Manhattan. He's had a couple of franchises over the years, and he's been the mentor to many people, including yours truly. Once a year, he and Amy ran a advanced whole hog cooking seminar down in Murfreesboro, Illinois, Southern Illinois, and attracted people from all over the country. Amy also worked with him and taught how to run a barbecue restaurant and the business of barbecue. And Mike died this week, and Clint and I collaborated on a little bit of a remembrance and tribute to him, which you will find a link to on our homepage. But he was a classic and classy guy, and losing him, it was a great loss. Not just to the barbecue community, I think just about, well, I know Kevin and Clint and I felt that loss personally. So
yeah, he was one of the greatest storytellers. I used to love.
Oh, what a teller.
I would sit with him at Memphis in May and just listen to stories and pick up tips from him. for hours on end. He was a great guy that is sorely missed.
Thank
But
you
I have enjoyed, Kevin, watching your daughters kind of grow up with you around the grill, and it is something special for a father and daughter to have that bond, that love of barbecue together.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, it's important because just like I sent Amy a message, if it wasn't for people like herself that had her, like he entrusted her with the torch of 17th Street, and it's great to be a father of two daughters that they can look up to Amy and they can look up to Elizabeth Carmel and other people that they can relate to. Like it's great that like eventually they're gonna meet you, Meathead, me, and everybody else, but it's great that they have somebody they can follow and they can do. And Amy does it right. 17th Street does it right. Mike has always done it right. And it's important to always remember, respect, and appreciate the legends that we all live off of. Like
Yeah.
Dave Raymond's one of those things. Jim Stephen is one of those things. Like George Stephen is like, we live on the shoulders of giants, right? And you have to respect the trail that they have laid for us.
Mhm.
And that's the great thing about it. Dave Raymond's a great friend of mine. Jim Stephen is a great friend. Like I live on the shoulders of giants, and to have my daughters be able to look up to Amy, who Mike passed the torch to, it's a tremendous thing. And that's the great thing is barbecue is so inclusive and so encompassing. And you know, it's Meathead, you're gonna pass the torch. Clint, you continue to pass the torch, and I'm lucky just to be associated with you guys. And it's, you know, it's a hard 2020. It's going to be a hard 2021. But to be able to have people like yourselves that continue to promote barbecue and inclusiveness and what we do as a community is special. And I'm just fortunate to be a part of that.
You know, you pointed out something that really clicked with me too. One of the things about Mike and Amy is that the key people in his team, no turnover. All of his key people, they just been there forever, and they loved him and they loved working for him. I mean, Murfreesboro, Illinois is Podunk, Illinois. It's in the middle of bloody nowhere. It's not far from the St. Louis from the Illinois border. Really pretty country.
Oh, I got it. Yeah, yeah.
It's not far from Carbondale. There's a university there, but it's not there. I mean, it's not in Carbondale. It's nowhere. And it's really pretty country down there. There's actually a few wineries, but and 17th Street is off the main drag. I mean, it's on a side street. And yet it's a world famous destination for barbecue. And the thing about Amy is that there's never ever been a question of gender. Amy has just been another one of the pitmasters that we all work with and know and love. Amy and I have a great connection because her last book, she and her dad did a cookbook. She had the same editor that I had at Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. So we used to sit together and bitch about our editor.
Or conversate, however you want to talk about it.
No, there's no such thing as a writer who loves their editor.
Kevin loves her because of her cowboy boot collection.
Oh, she's got these brilliant cowboy boots. Yeah. Questions. Come on, guys. There's got to be some questions. You got to have a question about anything related to barbecue, brisket, chicken, ribs, rubs, sauces. Hey, I mentioned rubs. I'll let you in on a secret. I think I might have mentioned it before. This is not the final label, but look what's coming, Kevin.
Well, where can I find it? Can I get it? I mean, I've given you enough.
We're shooting for April. We're shooting for 3 rubs and 2 sauces. We're still in product development. It's been a lot of fun. Max and Clint and Dave and I and Jim and Husky have all been involved in tasting the samples and experimenting and designing the label.
Spinnaker's feeling left out now.
Oh, we'll make sure you get samples of the final product. But we're hoping to have it out in April, and It'll probably show up first in like hardware stores that do barbecue stuff.
So we're gonna do a class or a collaboration at Wanamaker's, probably. And then we can go
Wanamaker's.
from there.
Wanamaker's is a garden and hardware store about 5 miles from my house that is serious about barbecue. The kids are really, really great.
Sounds like a German butcher shop to me.
Yeah.
The family name.
All right. I think we see a question come in here.
You gonna sell
Kevin,
the
I have a performer
We
that I
may.
purchased a few years ago at Home Depot. For the life of me, I can't find the serial number tag on the frame. I think I'm missing it. Any way to still register the grill? Oh, he's got a black market performer made in Taiwan.
No, it was the VIN number was filed off.
Calm down. Just look at the damper on the lid. That tells us where it came from. Like,
Look at what?
there's a couple letters and a couple of numbers. Look at the damper on the lid. There's 2 letters, maybe some numbers, but 2 letters. We'll be able to figure it out.
All right,
think
this
he's
is
looking-
Crazy Town
I think-
3. Run out now and go get the numbers off the damper on the lid and see if that means a goddamn thing.
Well, I think he's looking for he's looking for a serial number, not the model. Right?
Well, no, the serial number is stamped into the damper.
Oh, okay.
Okay, serial number stamped into the
2
damper.
letters,
Hey,
2
Kevin.
letters, numbers.
My igniter is no longer working. I've got a performer also, and I loved what I would often do is a little off market. I would put my chimney on top of the burner and fire up and light my chimney rather than stack the coals there. I'd put the chimney on top.
Yep.
And it's not igniting now. What's my process of analyzing the problem?
Send me a text message. We can go have a beer at the Weber Grill restaurant in Lombard, and then I'll come fix your grill.
And can everybody who buys Weber grills get the same level of tech support?
I'm not saying they can, but there's levels to all this stuff, right?
I'll make notes on what my problem is precisely, because I do know what tech support needs, and I'll see if we can solve it.
Kevin,
I just start the charcoal with a charcoal starter, but
I use a chimney starter. I don't even use anything else. Chimney starter is the way it goes.
yeah. Oh, good. I'm not okay.
Kevin, I've got a 22-inch Simpsons kettle, and I dropped the lid and the paint chip. Can you respray that for me?
I think your best bet, Clint, is put it on eBay, see how much you can get for it, and
That's really hard to break that enamel. Okay, Crazy Town is back. He went out and looked at the damper, and he says there's no serial number on his damper.
Really?
well, then I guess it's out of warranty, probably. Like, because there's 2 letters on the damper, maybe some numbers, but there's stuff. But do me a favor, if he has a way to communicate with you guys, get his information, get it to me, and we'll take care of it.
All right,
No problem.
Crazy Town 3. Send email to me, meathead@amazingribs.com. And if you can, maybe even take a picture of the damper, and I'll pass it on to Kevin, and
And we'll take care of it.
he'll communicate with you directly.
Correct.
He's saying AH code.
Oh, AH. Well, now all of a sudden we got a serial number.
Is that AH? Is that the serial number?
That's part of it. Yeah. Mhm.
AH. So no, that's all he needs is AH.
That's it. That's all he needs is AH. So send you the information, get it to me, and we'll take care of it.
So, all right, I don't get it, Crazy Town. What's your issue? You want to register the device. So you're going to go to the website and you're going to type in, and they're going to ask you what the registration number is, and you're going to type AH.
You're going to type AH because that's part of the serial number. Yes. Mhm.
Part of.
Well, the AH tells us things, but I'm not going to get into all the way we do serial numbers. I mean, I'm just here to talk barbecue and
All right,
life.
reach
I mean,
out to me, Crazy Town, and I'm going to put you in touch with Kevin and get out of the middle.
That's exactly right. Get out of the way.
Very good.
Get out of the
give it to
middle.
Max. Max can handle it.
Picture will do. He's going to send a picture. He's going to send a picture. Okay. Come on, guys. Hit us with your best shots. It's 9:00. We can call it a night if you'd like. Otherwise, hit us with your last few questions. Otherwise, I think it's time to wrap it up. You know, this has been really interesting. I've learned a couple of tricks, and I hope so have you. A lot of good information flowing. I want to remind you, we are archiving these videos. So tell your friends, members, that the video will be live probably in a couple of days. And all of these happy hours that we've done going back to the beginning of there, I was noticing today, to see how many people watch the videos, that the pizza video has not been watched very much. And it's a great session. The section on logs is really good. The pellet smoker video, which a lot of people have watched, is really good. So go back and watch the inventory that you have for free as members. Let me do a little quick commercial and remind you that we are on schedule for last weekend in August in Memphis in May. We're going to come visit Clint. We're all staying at his house, for all 400 of us. And
So you'll have to stay in the south wing if it's 400 of you.
No, we're staying at the Grand Hotel, the Peabody, and I know you've been there, Kevin. It's a grand old American hotel, one of the great hotels in America. The event is technically booked solid. We have 400 seats, but we have a waiting list because I am sure when it comes time in March for us to say, okay, everybody, pay the balance from your deposit, we're going to have people who are going to cancel for one reason or another. Had a couple cancel, their daughter's getting married that weekend and stuff. And, we don't know where we'll be with the COVID stuff, but get on the waiting list if you're not there yet. There's a good chance that if you're on the waiting list, you'll get in. It's going to be a great weekend. We've got all kinds of great stuff planned. Go to amazingribs.com/Memphis. You can see the complete schedule as of the moment. We're still adding to it and fine tuning it. You haven't booked yet. Come on down, get on the waiting list, and join us in Memphis. You'll have all of our team is going to be there. Max, Spinnaker, Husky, Jared. Well, Jared, I don't think can make it, but all the rest of us are going to be there. So it should be a good time. And I'm looking to see if there are any last questions. I don't see any, so I think this is a good time to wrap it up. What do you guys say? Anything that you guys want to add? Last minute comments?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Hallelujah 21.
Support local business, support local business, support Smoke, support Lily's Q, support Sweet Baby Ray's, support anybody that's got a barbecue restaurant that's going through hard times. I mean, we got to raise money and do stuff for them. So anytime we can support those people, especially Deuce and Dave, Charlie, Barry.
Well, now, don't forget, Kevin, we're international. We have people in New Zealand.
Well, I know, I get that, but you know what? Support local barbecue because that's what we have to do.
Wherever you may be.
That's a really great point. And then before we ramble off on down that trail, they're estimating that 25% of all restaurants will perish, and maybe more. And that's a crying shame. I think the extinction of barbecue restaurants may be smaller because barbecue restaurants are popular for carryout, but still, it's what this is doing to the restaurant industry is horrific. And you guys are all cooks. I'm a cook. My wife and I are pretty darn good cooks. We cook at home, but every now and then order out, help support a local restaurant, keep them alive, and it's fun. Less dishes to clean up.
And be nice to your Pitmaster Club moderators.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. And
everyone.
Phil, I see your last comment, and I will do that when I finish up. Thank you very much, everybody. Hey, Kevin, thanks for joining us. I know you're a busy man and you're a big shot down at Weber, but it's always fun shooting the breeze with you. Spinnaker, thank you too. Stay warm.
Thank you.
Stay healthy. Max, always good hanging with you and Clint, and we'll see you. Clint, what's next month?
We're
Oh, well, we don't have it.
being sung off.
That's right. We may skip a month. We're still discussing that.
Yeah, we're talking about barbecue and beverages for the next one.
We want to do booze.
Meathead, I got a guy for you. You got to get this guy out. He's a Chicago guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Foremost experts in Scotch, bourbon, wine. Lights out.
Send me his info.
Yep.
I might.
You do know that I am the founder of the Beverage Testing Institute.
Well,
The
you might
world
have a good time.
wine
You might have an interesting conversation with Gene.
The World Wine Championships, World Beer Championships, and World Spirits Championships. I created them all.
Well, you might have a good time talking to Gene because he might be the expert above all that stuff.
Yeah.
That was my life before barbecue. All right, everybody.
You need to meet Gene. I'm going to do that for you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. I got you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Happy New Year.